Some Christmas stories begin with joy, but others begin with an empty chair and a woman trying to hide the hurt in her heart. On a cold December night, Brooke Daniels thought she was facing yet another holiday alone, until a soft little voice asked her a question that would change everything. What happened next is a reminder that kindness often arrives when we least expect it, and sometimes in the shape of a single dad and his brave little girl. Before we begin, if you enjoy heartfelt stories about Second Chances family and the quiet power of goodness, we warmly invite you to subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us bring more uplifting tales to you every week. Now, let's begin. The soft glow of Christmas lights traced delicate halos along the ceiling of Harborview Restaurant, casting warm reflections over polished silverware and neatly folded napkins. Outside the wide glass windows, snow drifted down in slow, gentle spirals, each flake a tiny, weightless miracle gliding toward the earth. Inside, couples toasted laughter rose in waves, and the festive hum of December wrapped around every table, except one. At the far end of the room, where the softest lighting pooled like amber, Honey Brooke Daniels sat alone. Her posture was straight navy, training never quite left the bones, but her eyes held a tremor she couldn't steady. She tried to appear composed, tapping the edge of her napkin with careful precision, pretending not to notice how the empty seat across from her had turned into a spotlight of humiliation. 15 minutes late, then 20, then 30. She checked her watch again, though she already knew what it would say. Time wasn't the thing hurting her. It was the silence, the absence, the truth arriving with cruel clarity. He wasn't coming. Brooke had always been good at compartmentalizing, at locking discomfort behind mental doors and marching forward, but tonight felt different. Maybe it was because she'd agreed for once to let someone set her up on a Christmas blind date. Maybe it was because she'd dared to hope that this year would be a little less lonely. Or maybe it was because Brandon Price, the man who'd asked for this dinner, had seemed kind enough, or at least adult enough, not to leave her sitting alone on Christmas Eve like a forgotten note in an empty room. She inhaled slowly, but the breath shook. Don't do this, she warned herself. Don't let them see you hurting. Her throat tightened anyway. She blinked fast, forcing the moisture back, willing her expression to stay neutral. A Navy officer didn't crumble at a white tablecloth and a broken promise. A waiter approached with the kind of tentative politeness one used for customers who might shatter. "Ma'am, would you like to keep waiting, or number?" Brooke forced a small smile. "I think that's enough waiting for tonight." The man nodded with that blend of pity and professionalism she hated. He removed the extra wine glass first, as if clearing away evidence that someone had once been expected. Brooke's chest squeezed. "Can I get you anything else?" he asked softly. "No, thank you." But the truth was, she didn't know what she needed. She didn't even know what to feel. Anger, embarrassment, disappointment. It all blurred together into something dull and heavy. She rose from her seat, reaching for her coat. The sleeve trembled slightly as she lifted it. She glanced once more at the table, the untouched bread basket, the unlit candle, the perfectly arranged silverware set for two, and a soft, aching thought slipped through her mind. Why am I never the one someone stays for? Brooke swallowed hard. She didn't want to think that, didn't want to believe it. But holiday loneliness had a cruel way of digging up wounds she thought she'd outgrown. She stepped back from the table, ready to leave this room, this moment, this humiliation behind. Then she heard it, a tiny, hesitant voice, gentle high and surprisingly steady. "Excuse me. Ma'am, are you okay?" Brooke froze. She turned, startled, and found herself looking down into a pair of earnest hazel eyes belonging to a little girl no more than 5. The child wore a bright red sweater that sparkled under the holiday lights, her long chestnut hair tucked neatly behind her small ears. In her hands was a tiny bundle of wildflowers, slightly uneven, clearly hand-picked, but vibrant and full of life. Brooke blinked. "Oh, sweetheart. I'm fine. Really." The little girl didn't move. She studied Brooke with the kind of sincerity only children possessed, unguarded, intuitive, deeply observant. Brooke felt exposed in a way she hadn't expected. "My daddy says," the girl began softly, "that grown-ups say they're okay when their hearts hurt." Brooke's breath caught. She didn't know what surprised her more, the words themselves, or how gently the child had spoken them. Before she could respond, footsteps approached quickly. "Daisy, hey honey, you can't just run up to a man," appeared beside the girl, and Brooke felt her voice catch again, but this time for a different reason. He wasn't dressed for the holiday crowd. His coat was worn, the fabric softened by years of use. His dark hair fell past his ears in relaxed waves, a little messy, a little wild. His expression held a quiet warmth that somehow made the bustling restaurant seem dimmer around him. He rested a steady hand on the girl's shoulder. "I'm so sorry," he said, looking at Brooke with genuine embarrassment. "She tends to wander when she gets curious." The little girl Daisy tugged on his sleeve, not taking her eyes off Brooke. "Daddy, she shouldn't be alone on Christmas." The man Cole Bennett, though. Brooke didn't know his name, yet hesitated. A breath, a moment. Something unspoken passed through his eyes, a kind of understanding that reached her before she knew she needed it. He gave Brooke a gentle, almost apologetic smile. "I know this might be forward," he said, voice low and steady, but Daisy's right. No one should sit alone tonight. The girl lifted the small bouquet toward Brooke as if offering something sacred. And then Cole spoke the sentence that would change everything. Soft, sincere, utterly unexpected. "Would it be all right if we joined you?" The words hovered in the air like a fragile spark, small, bright, impossible to ignore. Brooke stared at them, father and daughter, snow still clinging to their coats, warmth in their eyes, kindness radiating from a place she didn't understand. For the first time that night, something inside her shifted. A tiny crack in the loneliness, a flicker of light in the dark. She exhaled the breath, trembling but real. "Yes," she whispered. I'd like that." And just like that, Christmas changed course. The moment Brooke agreed, Daisy's face brightened, as if someone had switched on a Christmas tree inside her. She giggled a small musical sound before climbing eagerly onto the chair beside Brooke, swinging her legs back and forth. Cole hesitated for a second longer, as though giving Brooke one last chance to rescind her answer. When she didn't, he nodded with quiet gratitude and pulled out the seat across from her. For the first time that night, the table meant for two finally felt full. A waiter noticed the sudden change and hurried over with extra plates, exchanging a quick glance with Cole, one of those knowing, almost relieved looks people share when something unexpectedly good happens around them. Brooke avoided eye contact, still adjusting to how quickly the evening had transformed from silent disappointment into something warmer, gentler, and infinitely more unpredictable. Daisy placed her tiny bouquet in front of Brooke, pushing it forward with both hands. "These are for you," she said. "I picked them outside while Daddy was finding a parking spot. They're Christmas flowers, even though they're not red." Brooke smiled despite herself. "They're beautiful." "Thank you." Daisy nodded proudly. "I thought you needed something pretty. Grown-ups forget they need pretty things." Cole rubbed his forehead. "We're working on indoor manners," he said softly, though there was no reprimand in his tone. Only affection. Only the exhaustion and devotion of a parent who had learned to choose his battles wisely. Brooke studied him more closely now that he was seated. In the warm glow of the restaurant, The lines at the edges of his eyes hinted at tired days and long nights, the kind only single parents truly understood. His coat was older, but clean. His gaze steady but humble. There was something grounded about him, something that felt like a quiet anchor in a world intent on rushing. Daisy suddenly asked, "Were you waiting for someone?" Before we got here, Brooke stiffened. She hadn't expected the question, and she certainly wasn't ready to relive the sting of the empty chair. "Yes," she answered lightly, forcing calm into her tone. "But it's all right. Sometimes people get busy." Daisy frowned with the serious, furrowed concentration of a child solving a puzzle. "My daddy says busy is not the same thing as caring." Cole shot her a gentle warning look. "Daisy." "What?" she asked innocently. "It's true." Brooke let out a breath that became something very close to a laugh. "Your daddy is a wise man." Cole looked down embarrassed. "I just try to teach her to treat people kindly and tell the truth. Sometimes she combines both in ways I don't expect." Daisy leaned forward conspiratorially. "Daddy says truth without kindness is a hammer." "That's surprisingly poetic," Brooke said. Cole shrugged a little. "We build sayings to learn from. Helps us get through stuff." It was such a simple statement spoken without pride or self-importance, yet Brooke felt something shift inside her. She'd spent years in environments where competence came wrapped in hard edges, where vulnerability was a weakness, and wisdom always had to be loud to be heard. Cole was different. His strength was quiet, almost invisible unless you paid attention. Daisy swung her feet again, then asked with disarming directness, "Are you sad?" Brooke froze. Cole immediately reached across the table. "Daisy." "Honey." "It's okay," Brooke interrupted softly. "She's just asking." But how did one answer a question like that? Especially from a child who seemed to see straight through the walls Brooke had spent years constructing. Daisy waited patiently, chin resting on her small hands. Brooke inhaled. "Maybe just a little." Daisy nodded as though she had expected the answer. "That's what I thought. You looked like Daddy does on the days he misses Mom." Brooke's heart clenched. She hadn't known Cole was widowed, but now that the child had spoken little details, suddenly made sense. The gentleness, the tiredness, the way his eyes seemed to carry unspoken stories. Cole cleared his throat. "Daisy, let's, maybe talk about something else." But Daisy wasn't finished. She looked at Brooke with a strange, almost old soul empathy. "You don't have to be alone," she said quietly. "Not tonight." Brooke swallowed against an unexpected wave of emotion. Children, she realized, did not dance around pain. They held it in their palms like something that needed understanding instead of avoidance. The waiter arrived with menus, interrupting the moment. Conversation shifted, but the softness lingered. Daisy pointed out every dessert, describing in vivid detail which ones looked Christmassy and which ones were wintry, but not holly jolly enough. Cole ordered a simple meal, apologizing again for intruding on Brooke's evening. Though by now, it didn't feel like intrusion at all. It felt like rescue. A strange but comforting ease settled between the three of them, an unspoken agreement that whatever had brought them to this table tonight was something more than coincidence. When the waiter left, Daisy asked the question that anchored the chapter, the one that cracked something open inside Brooke in a way she couldn't have predicted. "Miss Brooke," she said softly, "can we be your friends?" Brooke's breath caught. Friends. Not pity, not charity, not awkwardness or obligation. Just friends. She opened her mouth, closed it again, unsure why it felt suddenly hard to speak. Daisy continued, "Daddy says Christmas is when hearts get their light back. Maybe your heart needs some light tonight. Ours can share." Cole rubbed his forehead again, embarrassed but smiling. She has theories about everything. Brooke finally found her voice. I would like that, Daisy. Very much. The child beamed, and Brooke felt something loosen inside her, something that had been wound tight for years. Cole exhaled softly, relief flickering in his eyes. Thank you, he said. She doesn't warm up to people so quickly. It's rare. Brooke didn't know how to answer that because the truth was, she didn't know how she had deserved this small, unexpected opening in the world. As the meal arrived, laughter began to replace the heaviness that had shadowed the evening. Brooke told Daisy about her favorite Christmas traditions from childhood. Cole shared a funny story about Daisy insisting their Christmas tree needed emotional support branches, and Daisy in return recited a miniature poem she'd made up about snowflakes being tiny winter secrets. Somewhere between the shared stories, Brooke realized the humiliation of earlier had faded. The ache in her chest had softened. Loneliness had been replaced with something fragile, warm and deeply unfamiliar. Hope. Small, but real. By the time the plates were cleared, Brooke felt her heart glowing with the softest flicker of belonging. And she didn't see it yet, not fully. But this was the moment her life began to shift. Not with fireworks, not with some grand romantic gesture, but with a tiny voice, a small bouquet, and one simple life-altering question. Can we be your friends? The restaurant had grown quieter as the night deepened. The earlier rush had thinned, leaving behind a softer glow, candles flickering gently, Christmas lights shimmering in small constellations along the walls. Outside the window, snow continued to fall in thick, slow flakes, blanketing the street in a kind of hushed reverence. Brooke felt it the shift. The world outside softened the world. At her table warmed. She hadn't planned for any of it. Certainly hadn't imagined her Christmas Eve turning from an abandoned blind date into dinner with a quiet single father and his bright-eyed daughter. But life, she realized, had a stubborn habit of redirecting us exactly when we thought the night was lost. Daisy dipped her spoon into a bowl of vanilla ice cream, the melted edges forming a pale halo. She swung her legs beneath the table, barely grazing the floor, as if she belonged in the air as much as on the ground. Brooke watched her with a kind of fond wonder. You like ice cream in winter? It tastes better, Daisy replied without hesitation. Cold things make cold nights friendlier. Brooke smiled. Is that another one of your daddy's sayings? Nope, that one's mine. Cole chuckled softly. She keeps a list. I do, Daisy added proudly. It's in my notebook. Daddy says I'm a collector of thoughts. Brooke's eyes drifted to Cole, who sat quietly listening more than speaking. There was a steadiness to him, something that didn't demand attention, yet drew it all the same. When he looked up, she noticed the faint shadows beneath his eyes, subtle signs of someone who carried both responsibility and sleepless nights. She found herself wanting to ask about his life, about the weight behind his smile, but she hesitated. She didn't want to intrude. She didn't want to assume closeness that wasn't yet earned. Instead, she asked gently, Do you two always spend Christmas Eve together like this? Cole nodded. Yeah, it's our tradition now. We keep it simple. Dinner somewhere, warm, maybe a drive to look at lights afterward. Daisy perked up. We saw the big Christmas house last year, the one with the inflatable Santa that fell over like he fainted. Brooke laughed softly. The child's enthusiasm was impossible to resist. Well, Cole added, we try to make holidays feel steady, predictable in the good way. His words landed with a quiet honesty. Brooke sensed layers beneath them, layers shaped by loss, by rebuilding, by the determination to give his daughter a childhood not defined by grief. She hesitated, then asked, Do you like Christmas? Cole looked down at his hands for a long moment before answering. I used to. When my wife was alive, it felt magical in the way holidays should. After she passed, it felt like a clock. I couldn't stop something that just kept coming whether we were ready or not. Brooke's breath caught. She'd suspected loss, but hearing it spoken softly, matter-of-factly, hit her deeper than she expected. "I'm sorry," she whispered. Cole nodded, offering a faint, grateful smile. "Thank you." "But Daisy," she brought the light back. "Kids have a way of doing that." As if hearing her cue, Daisy leaned against Cole's arm, nuzzling into him. "Daddy makes Christmas cozy. He always lights a candle and tells me stories." "What kind of stories?" Brooke asked. "Stories about Mom," Daisy said. "And about how the world can be kind, even when it feels scary." Brooke felt something pull inside her chest, an ache softened by tenderness. This little family had carried something heavy, yet here they were, glowing in the middle of winter, like a lantern kept alive through storms. She glanced at Cole again, noticing a patch on the inside of his coat as he shifted. It was old, the stitches worn but intact. Under the dim light, she caught the faint outline of military insignia, faded but unmistakable. "You served," she said quietly. Cole blinked, surprised she'd noticed. Just for a while. There was humility in his tone, almost to the point of deflecting. Many veterans wore their service openly, hats, jackets, stories at the ready. Cole wore his past like a folded photograph kept in a wallet, visible only if someone looked hard enough. "Army?" she asked gently. "Navy," he replied. "Maintenance division." Nothing glamorous. But Brooke knew the truth. Nothing in the service was nothing. Every role, every job, every uniform carried stories of sacrifice. Daisy looked up proudly. Daddy fixed planes. He even got a ribbon. Cole shook his head with a half-smile. "It was just part of the job, sweetheart." But Brooke wasn't fooled. She saw the humility, the restraint, the quiet dignity of someone who'd given more than he claimed. "Why did you leave?" she asked softly. He hesitated. Brooke immediately regretted the question. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to push." "No," he said gently. "It's all right." He exhaled, steady but weighted. "My wife's accident. It changed everything. Daisy was too. I realized I couldn't stay. I needed to be there for her. Really there." Brooke nodded, understanding deeper than he knew. Duty took many shapes. Some wore medals. Some wore baby monitors and overtime shifts. And the janitor job she added carefully. Cole didn't flinch. "It's honest work. And it keeps my schedule predictable for her." Predictable is important. Daisy tapped the table. "Predictable means Daddy is home for bedtime." A small laugh escaped Brooke, warm, involuntary. "That's a good reason." Cole looked at her, then fully openly, and something in his expression made Brooke feel seen in a way she hadn't been in years. Not as an officer, not as a date left behind, just a person. A woman sitting at a table under Christmas lights trying to piece her heart back together. "And you?" Cole asked softly. "What brings you here tonight?" Besides a complicated date. The memory of Brandon's empty chair flickered, but it didn't sting as sharply now. "I guess I was hoping for something different this year," she admitted. "Something warmer. Something that didn't feel like another reminder that life keeps moving faster than my heart can follow." Cole nodded slowly. "I get that." The silence between them wasn't awkward. It felt restful, like two people acknowledging the quiet truths of their lives. Then Daisy broke it in the most Daisy way possible. "Miss Brooke," she said brightly. "You look happier now." Brooke blinked. "Do I?" "Yes." "Only a little. But a little happy is still happy." Brooke reached over and gently squeezed the little girl's hand. "Thank you, Daisy, for the flowers, for noticing, for everything." Daisy beamed, her smile widening like a sunrise, and in that small, luminous moment, Brooke realized something with startling clarity. Sometimes the brightest light in a dark season didn't come from candles or Christmas bulbs, but from a child's kindness and the quiet strength of the person raising her. The plates on the table had been cleared away, leaving behind only the gentle glow of the candles and the quiet comfort that had grown between the three of them. The restaurant was nearly empty now. Most families had already drifted home to warm living rooms and waiting trees. But somehow, staying a little longer felt right, as if the night still had something important to say. Brooke sipped the last of her tea, letting the warmth settle in her chest. Across from her, Cole was helping Daisy wipe a small dollop of melted ice cream from her chin. It was such a simple, tender gesture, one that revealed volumes about the kind of father he was. Patient, consistent, soft-spoken in the ways that mattered. Daisy leaned back in her chair, satisfied with her dessert and the attention. She glanced at the window, watching the snow drift down like feathers falling from the sky. "It's snowing prettier now," she announced. "Prettier?" Brooke echoed, smiling. Daisy nodded thoughtfully. "Snow gets prettier when you're not sad." Brooke's breath hitched at the innocence of the statement. Before she could answer, Daisy added gently, "Daddy says, sad people see blurry snow because their hearts get foggy." Cole sighed, rubbing his forehead. "I really need to stop saying things around her." Brooke laughed softly. "No, you don't. She listens with her whole heart." "That's rare." Daisy sat up straighter, sensing her moment. "Daddy has lots of sayings. He makes them up when I'm scared or feeling small." Cole tried to wave the comment away with embarrassment, but Daisy continued before he could redirect her. "My favorite one is the rain one," she said. Brooke tilted her head. "The rain one?" Daisy nodded earnestly. "Daddy says, sadness is like rain. It has to fall before the sky can clear." The world seemed to pause. Brooke looked at Cole. Really looked. His eyes dropped to the table for a moment, as if sharing too much of himself without meaning to. She sensed the humility in him, the reluctance to claim wisdom even when it was obvious he carried more than most. "That's beautiful," she said quietly. Cole shrugged. "Just something to help her make sense of things." "No," Brooke insisted gently. "It's more than that." There was a moment of stillness, a soft, deepening connection forming between them, a bridge built not from grand gestures, but from quiet sincerity and shared truths. Daisy, pleased that her father's words had made an impact, reached for a straw wrapper and began folding it neatly, her small fingers moving with careful intention. "Daddy says another thing," she said without looking up. "He says, kindness is what we owe each other." Cole exhaled softly. "Okay, that one I'll take credit for." Brooke felt her chest warm. In her career, she had spent years surrounded by people trained to push through, to harden to survive. Kindness was often the first thing sacrificed in the name of strength. But here was a man who'd chosen to build his daughter's world out of compassion, not as decoration, but as foundation. Daisy looked up suddenly, the wrapper forgotten. "Miss Brooke, can I ask you something, of course?" The child hesitated, eyes full and searching as if weighing the importance of her question. "Are you lonely?" It wasn't accusation. It wasn't pity. It was pure curiosity, the honest kind a child uses when she cares. Brooke inhaled slowly. Her instinct was to deflect, to laugh lightly, to camouflage vulnerability with maturity. But Daisy's sincerity disarmed her. A little, Brooke admitted. "Sometimes." Daisy nodded, as though the answer fit neatly into a puzzle she'd been assembling. "Daddy says lonely feelings get smaller when you let people sit with you." Brooke felt something swell in her throat, a tenderness she hadn't given herself permission to feel in a long time. "That sounds like good advice," she whispered. "It is," Daisy said confidently. "It's how Daddy helped me after Mom went to heaven." Brooke turned to Cole, her expression softening. He met her gaze with a small, almost apologetic smile. "We talk about big feelings in our house," he said. "Keeps us from drowning in them." Brooke could only nod. She admired it, admired him. She knew many tough men, good men even, who never found that level of emotional courage. Daisy tugged at her sleeve. "Miss Brooke." "Yes, sweetheart. Do you want to be friends with us? Real friends. Not just dinner friends." Brooke felt her heart swell. Something inside her, something long, shuddered, cracked open with delicate relief. "I'd like that," she said, her voice catching. Daisy grinned so wide she nearly tipped forward. "Good," she declared. "Because Daddy says friends are the family you find when life gets messy." Cole groaned softly, covering his face with his hand. "I really do talk too much." Brooke shook her head. "No, you talk just enough." Their eyes met across the table. This time, the moment stretched a little longer, warm and unhurried. Brooke felt something stirring in her, a small ember beginning to glow where cold had settled earlier. With great ceremony, Daisy placed the folded straw wrapper into Brooke's hand. "This is a friendship token. It means you're part of our Christmas now." Brooke looked down at the tiny, uneven fold, and her heart tightened with emotion stronger than she expected. "Thank you," she whispered. "That means a lot." Snow pressed against the window in soft bursts. The restaurant lights reflected in it like tiny lanterns floating through the night. Brooke didn't know how to describe the feeling rising in her chest, something between gratitude and wonder, something she feared naming too soon. But she knew this. When she walked into the restaurant that evening, she had been a woman abandoned at a table, staring at an empty seat that echoed her own loneliness. Now she sat across from a father who had weathered storms she could feel even in his silences, and beside a little girl who seemed capable of lighting even the darkest corner of a person's heart. Light in the dark, Brooke thought. Some people needed fireworks to feel hope. She just needed this table, this child, this quiet man. And for the first time in many December seasons, the night didn't feel cold. The snow outside had grown heavier, swirling in soft, determined currents that blended the world into shades of white and gold. Inside the restaurant, the last of the staff prepared closing routines, dimming some lights, polishing unused glasses, sweeping quietly around the edges of the room. But the small circle of warmth at Brooke's table remained untouched, suspended in its own time. Daisy had migrated from her chair to the space beside her father, curled against his side the way young children do when they feel safe enough to grow sleepy. Her small hand played absently with the buttons of Cole's coat as her eyelids dipped and rose like fragile shutters. Brooke watched them with a tenderness she hadn't anticipated. It struck her how effortlessly love wrapped itself around this little family. Not loud, not showy, just steady, like breath, like a heartbeat. Cole brushed a strand of Daisy's hair back, gentle and practiced. "She's running out of steam," he murmured, smiling. "She did wonderfully tonight," Brooke said softly. "She has a big heart." Cole nodded, his eyes warm. "She does. Bigger than mine most days." Brooke hesitated for a moment, fingers tracing the edge of her teacup. She didn't want to intrude, but curiosity tugged at her gently, insistently. "Do you mind if I ask about her mother?" she said. Cole's expression didn't harden, but it shifted like a quiet door settling into its hinges, preparing to carry weight. He took a slow breath, steady, but touched with sorrow. "Her name was Emily," he said. She was sunshine. The kind of person who made people feel lighter just being around her. Brooke listened with stillness, sensing the reverence in his voice. "We met when I was stationed in Pensacola," he continued. "She worked in the base library. I used to go there pretending I needed manuals or schedules, but Really, I just wanted to hear her voice. A wistful smile touched his lips, barely there, but genuine. We married fast. Some people said too fast. But we knew. Brooke felt the truth in his tone, a kind of steady conviction that didn't need defending. When Daisy was born, he said, glancing at his daughter, Emily would say she'd finally met someone who smiled more than she did. They were best friends from the start. He paused, eyes turning distant softer. The accident happened 3 years later. Car didn't stop at a light. Emily was on her way to pick up Daisy from daycare. Brooke felt her chest tighten with quiet ache. I'm so sorry. He nodded, but not in dismissal. More like acknowledgement of sorrow, lived sorrow, carried sorrow, accepted. The Navy granted me emergency leave at first. But when I returned, everything felt wrong. I was showing up physically, but not really present. My mind was on Daisy, on what she needed, on how small she was, how easily she could be hurt. He ran his thumb gently over Daisy's tiny fingers. I knew I couldn't raise her on a rotating schedule of deployment and late-night repairs. I couldn't keep missing bedtime stories, or mornings when she woke up scared because she couldn't see anyone in the house. Brooke's throat tightened. She had known many men who loved deeply, but few who articulated their love with such clarity. So I left, he continued. It wasn't an easy decision. I loved serving. But Daisy needed one steady place in the world. I wanted to be that place. Silence settled between them, warm and heavy. Not uncomfortable, just honest. And the janitor position Brooke asked, though, gently. Cole smiled with a mixture of humility and acceptance. It was available. The hours made sense. The school is near our home, so I can walk Daisy to class most days. It's enough. It's honorable, Brooke said softly, and deeply loving. He exhaled as if relieved by the understanding in her voice. I don't know if I'm doing it right, he admitted quietly, but I'm trying to raise her in a way that honors who her mom was. Brooke studied him, the weary strength, the layered tenderness, the resilience formed, not from pride, but from responsibility. It humbled her in a way she didn't expect. You're doing far better than you think, she said. Cole looked up at her eyes, shadowed by gratitude, and something else, something cautious, but open like a door cracked just enough to let the light in. Daisy stirred, then lifting her head with a little sleepy sigh. Daddy. I'm here, he whispered, smoothing her hair. She blinked at Brooke, still half dreaming. Miss Brooke? Do you know something? What's that? Brooke asked gently. My mommy liked nice people, she murmured. I think she'd like you. Brooke's breath caught in that small, unfiltered sincerity children speak without fear of consequence. Cole lowered his eyes, moved in a way he didn't try to hide. That's a very sweet thing to say, Brooke, whispered, brushing a soft hand along Daisy's shoulder. Daisy nodded, once satisfied, then nestled back against her father with complete trust. Brooke looked at Cole again, and for the first time, she understood the weight he carried not as a burden, but as a promise he had made to himself and to a daughter who needed him completely. He wasn't just a janitor. He wasn't simply a former serviceman. He was a man who had built his entire life around love and loss and the quiet courage to keep moving despite both. And she felt something unfold within herself, something she had long kept locked behind layers of uniform, pride, discipline, and fear. Something warm, tentative, hopeful. I'm glad you stayed, she said softly. Cole looked at her puzzled. Stayed at the table, she clarified. Tonight. You and Daisy. You stayed. His expression softened into something almost luminous in the candlelight. We stayed, he said quietly, because you looked like someone who needed someone to stay. Her breath trembled. The snow outside fell in thicker waves, but inside the warmth between them grew fuller, deeper, like a quiet promise neither of them dared name yet. Cole gathered Daisy gently into his arms. She wrapped herself around his chest, without waking, fully trusting him with the ease of a child who had never known him to fail her. Brooke watched them, her heart tugged by something unfamiliar, yet profound. A whisper in her mind. A man like this doesn't pass through your life without leaving light behind. And in that moment, she realized that the empty seat from earlier wasn't empty anymore. Not in the way that mattered. The next morning, the world seemed softer, somehow, brighter, quieter, as if the snowfall from the night before had muffled the harshness life usually carried. Brooke woke with a lingering warmth in her chest, one that surprised her as much as it comforted her. She had not felt this kind of emotional ease, this gentle lightness in years. Some moments in life didn't announce themselves with fireworks. Some came quietly, like a hand resting on yours in the dark, letting you know you weren't alone. Last night had been exactly that. By late morning, Brooke found herself standing in front of Maple Grove Elementary, the school where Cole worked. She hadn't planned to come here, not in any structured, deliberate way. But Daisy had mentioned that she and her father would be decorating the school gym for the Christmas Eve assembly, and an idea had bloomed tentative at first, then pulling her like a steady tide. When she stepped inside the gym, she spotted them immediately. Cole stood on a stepladder, hanging garlands along the basketball hoop with quiet concentration. Daisy was below him, holding the box of ornaments, like a guardian of small treasures. Her red sweater had a new smear of glitter across the front, evidence of important artistic work. Daisy saw her first. "Miss Brooke," she squealed, running over, as if Brooke were a long-lost aunt, instead of someone she'd met only the night before. Brooke kneeled, smiling. "Good morning, sweetheart." "You came." Daisy wrapped her arms around her neck. "Daddy said maybe you wouldn't because people get busy." Cole looked down sharply. "Daisy," but I told him no. Daisy continued matter-of-factly, because she said she'd be our real friend. Brooke felt her heart melt, and real friends try their best to show up. Cole descended the ladder, wiping his hands on his jeans. "This is a nice surprise," he said, though his tone was gentle rather than doubtful. Brooke shrugged lightly, trying not to show how much his words warmed her. "I figured you two might need an extra pair of hands." "We do," Daisy confirmed immediately. "Daddy says I'm too short to reach anything except the bottom branches," Cole chuckled. "She's enthusiastic, but height isn't on her side yet." "I climb chairs," Daisy added proudly. Brooke laughed. "I see that going well." They fell into an easy rhythm. Daisy sorted ornaments by color. Brooke hung the ones within reach, and Cole busied himself with the higher decorations. The gym slowly transformed garlands, draped lights, strung paper snowflakes taped to the windows. The scent of pine and cinnamon drifted from the hallway, where volunteers had set up hot cocoa for the teachers. For a while, Brooke felt as though she'd stepped into an old-fashioned Christmas card. Warmth, laughter, simple togetherness, nothing large or loud, just gentle threads weaving connection. Then something shifted. Cole stepped aside to adjust an extension cord, and his phone buzzed in his pocket. He checked it, and a subtle tension tightened his jaw. Brooke noticed it instantly, not a dramatic change, but the kind of flicker that someone like her trained to read microsignals couldn't miss. "Everything okay?" she asked. He hesitated. "Yeah, just school administration stuff," Daisy piped up innocently. "Is that the message about your job?" Cole closed his eyes for a fraction of a second, barely perceptible. But Daisy had already spoken. Brooke paused, concern blooming in her chest. "Your job," Cole sighed, pocketing the phone. "They're doing some budget cuts after the holidays. Maintenance and custodial is the first place they look. They're not letting anyone go permanently yet, but They're cutting hours. Brooke understood immediately. Cut hours meant cut income. Cut income meant instability, rent, groceries, childcare. And for a single father working an already modest job, any uncertainty could hit hard. "I'm sorry," she said softly. Cole shook his head. "It's no one's fault. Schools are tight on money. It happens." His voice was calm, steady. Too steady. She recognized the way people spoke when they'd learned to swallow fear so their kids never had to taste it. Daisy reached up and tugged Brooke's sleeve. "Miss Brooke, Daddy always says everything will be okay." But sometimes grown-ups say that when their stomachs feel scared. Brooke knelt beside her, brushing a hand gently across Daisy's hair. "I know, sweetheart." She looked at Cole again. Really looked. Behind his careful composure, she saw concern hidden under resilience, uncertainty tucked beneath responsibility. A quiet storm held at bay by sheer strength of character. Before she could speak, Daisy threw her arms around Brooke's waist. "Miss Brooke, if Daddy gets fewer hours, does that mean he'll be sad?" Cole exhaled a sound halfway between a sigh and surrender. Daisy Brooke pulled Daisy gently into her arms. "He might worry a little. But your dad is strong, and brave, and smart. He'll figure things out." Daisy looked up at her with hopeful eyes. "You think so?" Brooke's voice softened. "I know so." Cole swallowed, visibly. Moved. "Thank you." "It's just the truth," Brooke said. They continued decorating, but something had shifted in the room, an invisible thread tying them closer, woven by shared vulnerability instead of just shared stories. At one point, Brooke stepped back to admire their work. The gym had become a soft kaleidoscope of red, green, silver, and gold. Snowflake cutouts twirled each time the heater kicked on. The lights shimmered in gentle waves. "It's beautiful," she murmured. Daisy tugged her hand. "We make a good team." Brooke smiled. "We do." But the moment that anchored itself, deepest, came when they were nearly done. Daisy ran to place the final ornament, a small wooden star, on the lowest branch of the display tree. She paused, turned, and called out, "Daddy, Miss Brooke." "Come look," they joined her. The star wasn't straight. It leaned slightly, giving the tree a charming imperfection. But her eyes shone with pride. "Do you know what this means?" Daisy asked. Brooke knelt beside her. "What?" "It means," Daisy declared, "that even when things tilt a little, they're still beautiful." Brooke felt tears prick behind her eyes. She glanced at Cole. His jaw tightened again, but this time it was emotion he held back, not worry. He crouched beside his daughter, pulling her gently into his arms. "You're something special, kiddo." Daisy hugged him fiercely. "You too, Daddy." Brooke watched the two of them, father and daughter, framed by twinkling lights, and she felt her heart bend, soften, expand. There was something about witnessing pure love that made her feel both humbled and uplifted. Kindness had found her last night, and today she realized kindness wasn't done yet. The Christmas assembly at Maple Grove Elementary wrapped up with applause that echoed warmly against the gym walls. Children in red scarves and green sweaters waved paper snowflakes as proud parents clapped from folding chairs. Brooke found herself smiling through the entire event, surprised by how naturally joy settled into her chest. She hadn't attended a school event in years, not since her own childhood performances. Yet here she was, cheering for Daisy, as if she had known the little girl all her life. When the crowd began to disperse, Brooke helped fold chairs, while Cole stacked sound equipment against the wall. Daisy bounced between them, humming a holiday tune she'd learned that morning. "I like seeing you two together," Daisy announced with the blunt sweetness only a child could manage. "You look like a picture." Brooke laughed awkwardly. Cole nearly dropped a speaker. "Daisy," he warned gently. "What?" she asked innocently. Pictures are nice. Brooke reached out and tapped Daisy's nose. Your trouble, you know that Daddy says I'm his best kind of trouble? Cole gave up with a sigh. As they finished tidying, Brooke excused herself to grab a bottle of water from the hallway vending machine. The hallway was quiet, decorated with construction paper wreaths and photographs of smiling students. She leaned against the cool wall and inhaled, letting the moment settle. She felt grounded, more than she had in a long time. But when she turned the corner to return to the gym, she froze. Cole stood by the main school entrance, speaking with a woman Brooke had never seen before. Not just speaking standing close, too close. The woman was elegant in a precise, polished way, hair pinned neatly long winter coat, buttoned to the collar boots that suggested taste and confidence. She held a hand gently against Cole's arm as she spoke, her head tilted in a familiar angle one Brooke recognized instantly. Concern, tenderness, something personal. Brooke inhaled sharply, instinctively stepping back into the shadowed part of the hallway. The woman said something Brooke couldn't hear, but Cole's face softened with relief, an expression that pierced something inside her. He glanced down, nodding at whatever reassurance the woman offered. Brooke's stomach tightened. Is that a girlfriend? Someone returning, someone he'd been too polite to mention. Brooke felt foolish, suddenly foolish for feeling connected, foolish for believing she had stepped into something meaningful. The woman touched his arm again, and Cole didn't pull away. A hollow ache opened in Brooke's chest. She didn't wait to see more. She turned quietly and walked in the opposite direction, the sound of her footsteps muted by the polished school tiles. She stepped outside into the cold winter air, breath misting in front of her pulse, unsteady in a way she hated. It wasn't jealousy, she told herself. They had known each other for barely 2 days. She had no claim, no expectation. But it wasn't jealousy either. It was disappointment, sharp and surprising. She had let herself hope for something small and bright, something uncomplicated. And now, watching Cole with that composed, elegant woman, she felt suddenly out of place, like she'd walked into the wrong chapter of someone else's story. She wrapped her coat tighter around herself, preparing to leave before they saw her. But Daisy spotted her first. "Miss Brooke, where are you going?" she called, racing out the door with her little boots scattering snow like confetti. Brooke forced a smile. "I was just heading home, sweetheart." "But we're supposed to walk you to your car," Daisy protested, eyes wide. Cole emerged behind her, pulling his coat on. The woman followed a few steps later. Brooke, Cole called. "Hey, wait." She turned, keeping her expression steady. "It's all right. I didn't want to interrupt." The woman stepped forward with polite confidence. "You must be Brooke." Brooke nodded, offering a courteous smile. "Nice to meet you. I'm Clara," the woman said warmly. Cole's mother. The words hit with the force of a sudden, unexpected thaw. Mother. Not girlfriend. Not returning lover. Relief rushed through Brooke so quickly she almost felt winded. Clara extended her hand. "Cole and Daisy talk about you. I've been looking forward to meeting the woman who made my granddaughter smile so much she hasn't stopped since last night." Brooke flushed, taken aback. "I didn't do anything special." Clara studied her with eyes that missed nothing. Sometimes kindness is special enough. Before Brooke could answer, Clara leaned in slightly, her voice lowering, not hostile, but direct, in the way only women who had survived enough life permitted themselves to be. "I want my son happy," she said softly. "He carries more than he shows. If you step into his life, you must step with both feet, not one." Brooke blinked. The message was gentle and sharp, protective, motherly. "I understand," Brooke said quietly. Clara nodded, once approving the honesty. Cole approached, slightly flustered. "I didn't realize you two would meet like this," Clara chuckled. Life rarely waits for perfect introductions. Daisy grabbed Brooke's hand again. Daddy said we're going to get hot chocolate on the way home. Want to come? Brooke hesitated, not because she didn't want to, but because Clara's words echoed in her chest. Both feet, not one. Her heart wasn't sure it could afford that. Not yet. Not so soon. Not when vulnerability still felt like a skill she hadn't practiced in years. Cole watched her carefully. Only if you want to, he said. No pressure. Brooke took a slow breath. Maybe another time. I think I should head home tonight. Daisy's face fell, but Sweetheart Cole said gently, Miss Brooke might be tired. Clara rested a hand on Daisy's shoulder. She'll come again. Brooke smiled softly. I promise I will. Daisy hugged her legs tightly before letting go. The three of them, Cole, Clara. Daisy walked toward their truck. Brooke watched them for a long moment. A real family, imperfect, stitched together with loss and love and resilience. A place she could belong, if she dared. As she turned and walked to her car, the snow crunching beneath her boots, she didn't feel rejected like she had the night before. But she did feel something else. Fear. Not of being hurt, she had endured that plenty. But fear of hoping again. Fear of a life that might actually be big enough, warm enough, kind enough to include her. Fear of stepping forward with both feet. And yet, even through the uncertainty, she wanted to. More than she'd expected. More than she'd prepared for. More than she'd ever admit aloud. For the next 2 days, Brooke tried to settle back into her routine. She completed reports, attended briefings, ran errands she'd been delaying for weeks. Everything was orderly, predictable, exactly the way she used to prefer it. Yet something felt off. Like a room where someone had quietly removed the lamp. Everything looked the same, but the light was different. It wasn't unpleasant, just lonely again, though not in the same deep way as before. More like she'd tasted the warmth of connection and now felt its absence. She thought of Cole more often than she meant to his steady voice, the quiet strength in his eyes, the way he always crouched down to Daisy's level when speaking to her. She replayed little moments she hadn't realized meant something until afterward. The way he listened, the way he thought before speaking, the way he carried both sorrow and gentleness in a balance she'd never seen before. But it was Daisy who lingered in her thoughts the most. Daisy with her bright curiosity, her unnerving emotional insight, her simple but profound truths that landed with the weight of wisdom adults often spent entire lifetimes chasing. On the afternoon of December 26th, Brooke stopped by Maple Grove Elementary. She had a legitimate reason she had promised Daisy she would return, but even she knew the promise wasn't the only thing drawing her back. The schoolyard was quiet. Classes were still on holiday break, but Cole had mentioned needing to clean up the auditorium after the Christmas event. Brooke walked toward the playground boots, crunching over a thin sheet of frost. And there she saw her. Daisy sat alone in the middle of the swing set legs, dangling above the frozen patch of ground. Her scarf was a little crooked, and she was gently nudging herself back and forth with the tips of her shoes. Brooke approached slowly. Hey there, sweetheart. Daisy looked up immediately, her face blooming into joy. Miss Brooke. Brooke smiled and sat on the swing beside her. The cold iron chain chilled her fingers, but the child's presence warmed everything else. Where's your dad? Brooke asked. In the auditorium. Grandma said I could play out here until he finishes. Brooke nodded. Want some company? Yes, please. They swung gently in the quiet afternoon. No crowds, no chaos, just the sound of metal creaking softly, and the distant hum of winter wind brushing through leafless branches. After a few moments, Daisy asked Miss Brooke, "Are you mad at us?" Brooke blinked, startled. Mad? Why would I be mad? Well, Daisy said, kicking at the frost. You left the other day. You didn't come with us for hot chocolate." Daddy said, "Maybe you were tired, but your face looked like your heart hurt." Brooke felt her breath hitch. Children saw what adults thought they hid. "No, sweetheart. I wasn't mad," Brooke said gently. "I was just confused about Daddy." Brooke hesitated. A little. "I thought that woman with him was someone else." Daisy wrinkled her nose. Grandma Brooke laughed softly. "Yes." Daisy considered this with exaggerated seriousness. "Why would Daddy have another woman? He's too tired for that." Brooke chuckled despite herself. "Is that right?" "Yes," Daisy said firmly. "Daddy says he only has space for me, and maybe for someone who understands quiet hearts." Brooke grew very still. "He said that." "Not exactly," Daisy admitted. "But he said some hearts talk loud, and some talk quiet. Quiet hearts need someone who listens close." Brooke's throat tightened. She wasn't just hearing a child repeat something she barely understood. She was hearing the echo of Cole's spirit, gentle patient, deeper than he ever claimed to be. "Miss Brooke," Daisy said after a moment, voice softening, "why are you scared?" Brooke blinked. "Scared, yes. Your shoulders get tight when you're scared, like you're holding a heavy invisible bag." Brooke looked away, blinking hard. This little girl saw too much. "I guess," Brooke said slowly, "I'm scared of caring about something I could lose." Daisy frowned thoughtfully. "But caring is how things grow." Brooke closed her eyes for a moment, swallowing emotion. "Sometimes caring hurts, sweetheart." Daisy nodded. "Daddy says that too. He says caring is like winter. Sometimes it's cold, but snow makes the world quiet enough to hear things you couldn't hear before." Brooke breathed out shakily. "Your dad is very wise." "Uh-huh." Daisy smiled proudly. "He's like a tree. He stands still even when the wind is loud." Brooke felt tears prick her eyes. She turned toward Daisy, her voice cracking softly. "You're very wise too." Daisy shrugged. "I just listen." The swing creaked gently beneath them. Then Daisy leaned her head against Brooke's arm. "Miss Brooke, you don't have to run away. Daddy gets sad when people run away." Brooke froze. Her heart clenched, then softened. "I didn't mean to run," Brooke whispered. "I just didn't want to step into something I wasn't sure I belonged to." Daisy looked up at her eyes full of soft certainty. "But you do belong. My grandma even said so." Your Grandma Brooke blinked in surprise. "Yes. After you left, she said, that woman is good for this family. She just needs to believe it." Brooke pressed a hand to her mouth, overwhelmed. Daisy stood and wrapped her small arms around Brooke's waist. "Daddy's heart is kind, but it's tired. He needs someone who makes it less tired." Brooke knelt, pulling Daisy into her arms. The child hugged her tightly without hesitation or fear. "I care about you," Brooke whispered. "Both of you." "More than I meant to," I know, Daisy whispered back. "That's why it hurts. Things that matter always hurt a little." Brooke closed her eyes, letting the honesty of that truth settle deep into her chest. And then, a soft voice behind them. Brooke, they turned. Cole stood a few steps away, broom in one hand, gloves in the other. He looked at them. Brooke kneeling in the snow with Daisy in her arms, and something in his expression opened, unguarded. "Hey," he said softly. "I didn't know you were here." Brooke stood slowly brushing frost from her coat. "I came to see Daisy." Cole nodded. "I'm glad you did." For a moment, none of them spoke. Then Daisy slipped her hand into Brooke's and said quietly, as though revealing a sacred secret, "Daddy." Miss Brooke was scared, but she's not running anymore. Cole's eyes warmed slowly, deeply, in that quiet way his emotions always revealed themselves. He looked at Brooke, a long, steady look, the kind that settled something inside her. "You don't have to run," he said gently. "Not from us." Brooke exhaled a breath, she felt she'd been holding for days. "No," she whispered. "I don't think I do." And in the delicate quiet of the snowy playground, something shifted between them. Something brave, something healing, something that felt like the beginning of hope finally landing where it belonged. The invitation came more gently than Brooke expected. Cole stood beside her near the playground bench, snow softening the edges of the world around them. Daisy had wandered a few feet away, hopping along the frozen footprints she'd made earlier. The air smelled like pine needles and the faint sweetness of winter. Cole shifted his gloves in one hand, his voice steady but careful. "We're having a small year-end dinner," he said. "Just me, Daisy, and my mom. Nothing fancy. If you'd like to join us, we'd really like to have you." Brooke felt something warm unfurl inside her chest, a soft blooming of belonging, tentative but undeniable. "I'd love to," she said quietly. Cole exhaled a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. Clara Bennett's home sat on a quiet street, lined with tall oaks and modest Christmas decorations. Wreaths, simple strings of lights, paper snowmen taped to windows. It wasn't a big house, nor a modern one. It was the kind of home that had stories in its walls and warmth woven into its carpet fibers. Brooke paused at the front door, steadying herself. This felt like more than dinner, more than a visit. It felt like stepping into a space she wasn't certain she deserved. Clara opened the door before Brooke knocked her eyes kind, but perceptive, always perceptive. Brooke Clara greeted her voice warm with sincerity rather than politeness. "Come in, dear. We're glad you're here." Brooke stepped inside. The living room glowed with soft lamplight. A small Christmas tree twinkled in the corner, ornaments mismatched, but clearly cherished. The scent of roasted chicken and fresh herbs filled the air. Daisy ran into the room with the enthusiasm of a firework. "Miss Brooke, you made it." Brooke knelt to hug her, laughter warming her cheeks. "Of course I made it." Cole emerged from the kitchen, wiping his hands on a towel. He had changed into a simple dark sweater, and Brooke thought quietly that she had never seen anyone look more like home. "Dinner's almost ready," he said. "Make yourself comfortable." Clara guided Brooke to the dining table, a cozy setup for 4. A woven runner lay across the wood surface, accompanied by candles that flickered in small amber glows. Clara's touch was everywhere, the neatly folded napkins, the small dish of cranberries, the mismatched but sturdy plates. "Please forgive the chaos," Clara said. "This house is lived in, not staged. It's perfect," Brooke replied honestly. And it was. They gathered at the table with Daisy, insisting on sitting between Brooke and her father. Conversation flowed easily. Stories about Daisy's school antics, memories Clara shared about Cole's childhood small jokes that made Daisy giggle so hard she nearly spilled her juice. But the moment that settled, deepest, came unexpectedly. It happened just after dessert. Clara's homemade apple crumble, warm and fragrant. Daisy reached for her fork, glanced at Brooke, and blurted out with innocent enthusiasm, "Mommy, can you pass me the napkin?" Silence. Absolute breath-stilling silence. Daisy froze, eyes widening as the words she'd said echoed in her own ears. She corrected herself instantly, cheeks flushing. "I mean Miss Brooke." But the slip lingered. Not awkward, not uncomfortable, just tender. Cole's fork paused midair. He looked at Brooke, not startled, not apologetic, but softened in a way she had never seen before. Clara's expression gentled her eyes, warming with something deeply approving. Brooke touched Daisy's arm with a small, reassuring smile. "It's okay, sweetheart." Daisy bit her lip. "It just slipped out." Brooke stroked her hair. "That's all right." Cole swallowed his voice low and steady. "Daisy hasn't called anyone that since Emily passed." The room breathed together one shared heartbeat. Brooke didn't speak right away. The moment deserved reverence. The kind older generations cherished, the kind born from truth rather than theatrics. "I'm honored," she finally whispered. Daisy looked relieved, leaning against Brooke with the natural ease of a child who followed her heart before her mind. Clara reached for her cup of tea, clearing her throat gently. "Brooke." Brooke met her eyes. Clara continued. "This house hasn't felt this warm in a long time." Brooke felt her throat tighten. "Thank you." Clara smiled, the kind of smile that held approval, gratitude, and the unmistakable tenderness of a mother seeing her son and granddaughter healing. Brooke, Clara said softly, "You make this home feel whole." Brooke blinked rapidly, overwhelmed in a way she hadn't expected. They continued dinner, letting the moment settle into something soft instead of sharp. Daisy showed Brooke the crocheted angel she'd made with her grandmother. Cole refilled her tea. Clara insisted Brooke take home extra crumble because leftovers are love. But when the dishes were cleared and Daisy scampered off to retrieve a board game, Cole and Brooke found themselves for a moment alone in the living room. Soft lamplight pooling around them like another presence. "Today meant a lot," Cole said quietly. "To all of us." Brooke nodded. "It meant a lot to me, too." Cole hesitated, then spoke from a place deeper than conscious thought. "I didn't know how much we missed this, having someone who fits." Brooke's heartbeat softened into something tender, protective. "I'm glad I'm here," she said. Cole's eyes warmed in that steady, quiet way she'd learned to recognize, a look that didn't demand, a look that welcomed. He didn't reach for her. He didn't need to. The closeness was already there, woven by moments, by silence, by trust. Daisy burst back into the room, arms full of game pieces. "We're going to play snowman charades," Cole laughed. "That's not a real game." "It is. If we make it," Daisy declared. Brooke joined them, laughter spilling easily, a sound she hadn't heard from herself in too long. For the rest of the night, they played games, shared stories, and built something fragile but real. Something that felt like the beginning of a second chance, not just for Cole, but for Brooke, too. When she finally stood to leave, Daisy hugged her fiercely. Clara squeezed her hand with quiet warmth, and Cole walked her to the door. Snow drifted gently outside just as it had the night they met. "This was a good night," Cole said softly. It was Brooke whispered. Their eyes lingered just long enough to say everything neither dared speak yet. And for the first time in years, Brooke Daniel stepped into the winter air, feeling a kind of warmth that followed her all the way home. Not the warmth of lights or blankets or holiday fireplaces, but the warmth of being wanted, of belonging, of having a place at someone's table, of being part of something that finally felt like a second chance. Brooke didn't expect the invitation. Not tonight. Not this soon. Not in a way that made her heart feel both steady and unsteady at the same time. It came wrapped not in romance, but in gentleness, a kind she was still learning how to receive. Cole had texted her earlier in the afternoon. "If you're free tonight, I'd like to take you somewhere." Just that. Simple. Soft. Open enough to decline, meaningful enough to accept. Brooke hesitated for only a moment before replying. Yes. She didn't ask where. She didn't need to. She trusted him. The evening air was crisp when Cole arrived at her apartment. Snow flurries drifted through the quiet neighborhood in slow, peaceful spirals. His old pickup truck pulled into the driveway, headlights cutting gentle arcs through the dusk. Brooke stepped outside in a long winter coat scarf wrapped neatly around her neck. Cole met her halfway up the walk, hands tucked into his pockets. Shoulders relaxed beneath a layer of December cold. "You look warm," he said with a small smile. "I come prepared for battle," Brooke replied lightly. Cole chuckled. "It's just dinner. Dinner in December is always a battle." He shook his head, amused his breath, forming clouds in the air. "Ready?" She nodded. "Always." He opened the truck door for her, an old-fashioned gesture, but somehow fitting. She climbed in surprised by how natural it felt to sit beside him again. They drove in comfortable silence, the truck humming steadily along the quiet streets. Christmas lights blinked from porches, tiny homes glowing with warmth against the winter dark. Brooke watched the lights pass the world outside, moving slow enough to savor. "Daisy's with your mom tonight?" she asked. "Yeah," Cole replied. "They're baking gingerbread, which means my kitchen will be a crime scene in the morning." Brooke laughed softly. "Worth it." "Oh, definitely." The truck turned a corner, and Brooke began to recognize the surroundings. Her breath caught. "Cole," she murmured. He glanced at her from the driver's seat, his voice gentle. "I wanted to bring you back. Here." The warm-lit sign of Harborview Restaurant came into view, the same place, the same night of the week, the same soft glow through the windows, the place where everything had begun, where she had been abandoned, and where moments later she had been found. Brooke felt her pulse flutter. "You didn't have to do this. I know," he said. "But I wanted to." He parked the truck and walked around to open her door. When she stepped onto the snow-covered pavement, the memory of that night washed over her. The empty seat, the ache, the quiet humiliation she hadn't even realized she'd been carrying for years. Cole stood beside her now, offering no dramatic gesture, no rescuing flourish, just presence. Calm, a kind of steady companionship that rewrote the meaning of the place, without needing to erase the past. They walked inside together. The restaurant looked the same, the amber lighting the quiet hum of winter conversations, the soft clinking of dishes and silverware. But tonight, the view was different, because she was not alone. The hostess smiled. "Table for two," Cole nodded. "If possible." "Could we sit at the booth near the back?" Brooke's breath caught again. The same table, the same booth, where she had once waited for someone who never came, where a little girl had asked, "Are you okay?" Where Cole had spoken the words that would change her life. "Can we join?" The hostess led them to the booth, placing menus before them. When she stepped away, Brooke stared at the empty seat across from her, the one that had once symbolized rejection, and now symbolized something entirely different. She looked up at Cole. "You really brought me back here." "I did." Why, Cole folded his hands on the table, voice quiet but unwavering. "Because beginnings matter. And I don't want the beginning of your story with us to be tied to pain." Brooke swallowed hard. "You don't need to fix anything for me," she whispered. "I'm not trying to fix it," he said gently. "I just want to stand with you while you rewrite it." Brooke's eyes softened, tears threatening. "You make things sound easy." "They're not," Cole said honestly. "But some things are worth trying for." The waiter arrived with water, giving Brooke a moment to steady herself. When they were alone again, she reached across the table, resting her hand atop Cole's. His fingers curled around hers without hesitation. "Cole," she said softly, "I've been afraid of this. I know. I don't move fast. I don't need fast. I don't know how to belong to something anymore. Then let us belong to you." Her breath stilled. Cole held her gaze, not intense, not demanding, but patient, warm, and steady. "Brooke," he said, "I'm not asking for a commitment you can't make. I'm not asking for promises. I'm asking if you'll walk with us, even if it's slow, even if it's uncertain, even if it scares you." His voice softened further. "I'm asking if you'll share the road. Not as a girlfriend, not as a placeholder, but as someone who matters to us." Brooke blinked rapidly, her voice trembling, and Daisy, a full, gentle smile crossed his lips. "She already thinks the world of you, and she's usually right about people." Brooke laughed softly, a teardrop escaping. "And if I say yes," she whispered. Cole exhaled. Slow, relieved, deeply meant. "Then we begin," he said. "Here. Not as a date, not as a rebound. As a family, if you want that." Brooke pressed her free hand to her heart. She didn't answer with words. She squeezed his hand. And that was enough. Cole leaned back, a warmth settling over him like a blanket. Brooke wiped her cheek with a shaky laugh. "I didn't expect this," she murmured. "Neither did I," he replied. "But here we are." The waiter returned and they ordered quietly familiar dishes, warm comfort foods. As they ate, they talked about small things. Daisy's upcoming school project, Clara's plans for New Year's Eve, the perfect ratio of marshmallows and hot cocoa. But beneath the small talk ran something deeper, an unspoken understanding that tonight wasn't about grand gestures, but about choosing each other in the quiet, steady way that mattered most. When the meal ended and they stepped back into the snowy night, Brooke felt lighter. She looked at Cole. He looked at her. And in the glow of the streetlights, something fragile and beautiful settled between them, a beginning rewritten. A second chance anchored. A new chapter waiting. Not perfect. Not rushed. Not dramatic. Just real. Just right. Just theirs. Morning sunlight spilled softly across Cole's front porch, painting pale gold over the drift of snow piled along the walkway. It was the kind of winter morning that felt untouched, calm, hushed, even sacred. The world had stopped rushing long enough for warmth to settle where it needed to. Brooke stood at the door, heart beating slower, steadier than it had in years. In her hands was a small box of pastries she'd picked up from the bakery down the road, a shy peace offering to the universe, an unspoken gesture of hope. Before she could knock, the door burst open. Miss Brooke Daisy launched forward in a flurry of wool mittens, red scarf, and pure excitement. Brooke barely had time to brace herself before the small girl wrapped both arms around her waist. "You came back," Daisy exclaimed, face glowing as though the sun itself had climbed into her eyes. Brooke knelt, hugging the child tightly. "Of course I came back. You said you would," Daisy said proudly. "And Daddy says, people who keep their promises are the best kind of people." Brooke swallowed the sudden rush of emotion. "Your dad's a smart man." Daisy nodded. "I know." Behind them, the warm smell of pancakes drifted through the open doorway. Clara's voice echoed lightly from the kitchen, followed by the sound of a spatula, and then Brooke Cole appeared, a dish towel slung over his shoulder, sleeves pushed up just enough to reveal his forearms dusted with flour. He looked relaxed, in a way she hadn't seen before, as if last night had carved out a soft place in his heart. He finally allowed himself to rest in. "You're just in time," he said, eyes warming. "We're making pancakes. Some are even round." Daisy giggled. "Daddy's making the funny-shaped ones." Brooke stepped inside, closing the door gently behind her. The house was exactly as she remembered from the night before, humble, warm, lived in. But this morning, it felt different. Fuller. Like she was walking into the beginning of something she had once been certain life didn't have for her anymore. Clara poked her head out of the kitchen. "Good morning, Brooke. Hungry?" Brooke smiled. "Very." "Good," Clara said. "Sit. I've decided calories don't count the week after Christmas." Brooke laughed, a sound she realized she didn't hear from herself often enough until recently. They gathered at the table. Clara placed a plate of pancakes in the center. Some were perfect circles, others resembled snowmen mittens, and one that looked suspiciously like a lopsided Tennessee. Daisy pointed proudly to that one. "I made that one," she announced. "It's abstract." "Like modern art," Cole added, utterly serious. Brooke leaned back in her chair, savoring the easy rhythm of the morning, the clink of forks. Daisy's delighted chatter, Clara's gentle humming as she poured syrup, Cole's warm presence at her side. It felt like slipping into a memory she wasn't part of until now, yet somehow fit into without effort. Halfway through breakfast, Daisy paused mid-bite. "Miss Brooke." "Well, can you come to all our breakfasts?" Cole nearly choked on his coffee. Brooke turned gently toward the child. "Well, sweetheart, that might be a lot of breakfasts." "That's okay," Daisy said. "We eat every day." Brooke laughed softly, but Daisy wasn't finished. "I want you here," she said, with all the sincerity of a heart too young to complicate love. "You make Daddy smile." The room stilled. Cole set his mug down slowly. Clara pretended to be very busy with the napkins. Brooke reached across the table and squeezed Daisy's hand. "You make me smile too." Daisy grinned. Mission accomplished. After breakfast, Cole offered to walk Brooke out for some fresh air. Daisy rushed ahead of them, stomping small boot prints into the snow while singing off-key Christmas carols. They walked slowly behind her, hands brushing but not quite linked. "Did she overwhelm you?" Cole asked gently. "No," Brooke said. "Not at all. She's honest in the most beautiful way." Cole smiled, eyes tracing the small figure ahead of them. "She's been through a lot. She hides it well." "You've given her a good childhood," Brooke said softly. Cole exhaled. "I've tried. I didn't always know what I was doing. Some days, I still don't." "That's what good parents always think," Brooke replied. Their footsteps crunched over the snow as they reached the small wooden fence bordering the backyard. Daisy had already begun making her first snow angel of the day. She waved at them dramatically. "Look, I'm Art again." Brooke smiled, leaning lightly against the fence. "Cole." He turned to her. "What you said last night," she began, "about beginning and choosing each other. I want that. I'm still afraid, but I want it." Cole looked at her, as if her words had landed in a place inside him he'd kept empty for too long. "You don't have to not be afraid," he said softly. "You just have to not run." "I'm done running," Brooke whispered. Something gentled in his eyes, a warmth that moved through him like thawing ice. "Good," he murmured. He took a small step closer, not assuming, not pressing, just offering. Brooke closed the distance. Their foreheads touched lightly, breath mingling in the cold winter air. It wasn't a grand gesture. It wasn't a movie kiss. It was something quieter, deeper, more honest, a moment of two broken hearts recognizing each other's scars and choosing to heal anyway. From the yard, Daisy shouted, "Daddy, Miss Brooke, come make an angel family." Cole laughed softly. "We're being summoned." Brooke intertwined her fingers with his. "Let's go." They walked toward Daisy hand in hand, leaving two sets of footprints side by side in the snow. Daisy looked up at them with unfiltered happiness. "I knew it," she said confidently. "We're a team now." Brooke knelt beside her, smoothing the small hat over Daisy's ears. "A team, yes," Daisy declared. "A family team." Cole looked at Brooke. Brooke looked at him. No fear this time, only warmth, only peace, only possibility. Clara stepped onto the porch, arms folded warmly as she watched them. "Well," she said softly to herself, "it's about time." Brooke laughed, lying back in the snow beside Daisy to make her own angel. Cole joined her on the other side. 3 angels in the snow. 3 hearts learning to belong again. 3 people choosing each other, not because life demanded it, but because kindness had led them here. When they stood brushing snow from their coats, Daisy took both their hands and said with dramatic importance, "To kindness," she declared, "it changes everything." Brooke's smile trembled with emotion. "Yes," she whispered, "it really does." And as the winter sun warmed their faces, Brooke knew deeply quietly, finally, that for the first time in many years, her heart was no longer wandering. It had found its place, its people, its home, the family she chose, and the one that had chosen her right back. Before we say goodbye, we'd love to hear from you. Where are you watching from today? Let us know in the comments. Our community is filled with wonderful people from all over, and your story matters here. And if this video touched your heart, we warmly invite you to subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us continue sharing healing, uplifting stories that celebrate kindness, family, and the quiet strength we all carry inside. Thank you truly for spending your time with us today. We appreciate you more than you know. Wishing you peace, warmth, and a beautiful day ahead.